Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 369, Clan Pearl of Wisdom. The episode begins with Ash and the gang sailing across the ocean, heading towards Deep City on a boat that was departing from Bomba Island at the end of last episode. Ash had decided to send out his Torkoal since he noticed that it kind of wanted some fresh air. And Ash and the gang and Torkoal watched together from the edge of the boat, looking for Deep City in the distance. And they also watched the numerous waves. Brock then noticed an island in the distance that didn't appear to be Deep after he compared it with his guidebook and came to the conclusion there was actually Maisie Island. It's just that since they were passing by, they make a pit stop there anyway, because they'd been on the boat for quite some time and were getting sick of sea traveling. May was especially down to make a pit stop on Maisie Island, since she hoped to eat at a restaurant there. Suddenly, Ash and Gang's conversation was interrupted when Torkoal and Pikachu spotted something when they were looking at the waves, and alerted what they had seen to Ash and the gang, which was none other than a spoink on a log in the middle of the goddamn ocean for some reason. Pikachu and Torkoal could recognize the spoink's scent, and this confirmed to Ash and gang that this was the same spoink they met in an episode while they were journeying to Lily Cove still. Suddenly, a wave happened to hit Spoink on its log and knocked it off of it, leading Ash to call for the boat's pilot to stop. And once it did, Ash and the gang got a life preserver from the boat and threw it out and pulled Spoink in with it to save it from drowning. Remarking that Spoink sure was unlucky to get washed away by that wave, since it was really the only semi-crazy wave they had seen recently. Anyways, Spoink was very happy to have been saved as it bounced around happily on the boat. Although Spoink bounced a little too wildly, and it accidentally ended up tripping over the life preserver that had saved its life. And although it didn't go over the boat, its pearl did. Of course, Spoink freaked out at this and became sad, as Ash and the gang were in disbelief at the fact that Spoink had somehow lost its pearl twice. And to make matters worse, this time it was lost underwater, so who knows where it would turn up. Spoink's sadness was then cured, though, when it saw a round buoy on the boat that doubled as a flotation device, and it used a little bit of psychic that it had, even though most of its psychic powers came from the pearl itself, to pick up the buoy and put it on its head, and to basically give itself a new pearl, just like it had done before. Although Ash quickly grabbed the buoy and scolded Spoink, saying that it wasn't its to take. Just then, Torkoal started to cry, knowing Spoink's situation. It basically felt bad for it, and Torkoal then decided to take action and jumped into the water to try and find Spoink's pearl. Man, Torkoal was so nice, dude. The fact that it felt the need to save Spoink's pearl was very touching. Although Ash and the gang got worried as they saw Torkoal simply sink to the bottom of the water, with Max noting that Torkoal obviously couldn't swim, and due to being a fire type, it could get seriously hurt from being underwater. Ash was obviously worried about Torkoal's safety and dived in after it to rescue it. Much to everyone's relief, Ash was able to rescue Torkoal and got him back on the ship. Although he scolded Torkoal, pointing out that it could have fucking drowned. Although May rebutted that it was cute that Torkoal wanted to save the pearl, which just made Torkoal cry even more, sad that it had failed to get it for Spoink. It cried so much, also sad at the fact that it was too exhausted to even try going back into the water, that Pikachu almost got washed away by Torkoal's tears. Brock then remarked that even though it was a bad idea for Torkoal to go in the water, the idea of going into the water to search was a good idea overall. So Brock and Ash sent out their Mudkip and Corphish respectively to dive underwater to try and find Spoink's pearl. And they quickly dove underwater. Just then though, Max reminded Brock that Lombre could swim as well and could help out. So at Max's request, Brock sent it out, but Lombre was more interested in practicing its backstroke as it just swam backwards instead of actually going underwater, much to Brock's annoyance. As for Mudkip and Corphish, they did search underwater, but unfortunately, they reported back to Ash and gang that they found no sign of the pearl, and were sad about this. Eventually, the driver of the boat got sick of just sitting there doing absolutely nothing, so he drove everyone to Maisie Island anyways, and basically kicked them off the boat. This left Ash and the gang depressed, as they simply just walked to a rest stop on the island, unsure where to search for Spoink's pearl, since they were on a goddamn island, and searching the water wasn't proving well either, so they simply just stared out to sea, stressed the fuck out. They really wanted to help Spoink, but they didn't know how to. Just then, a young boy ran by with his Azurill in his hands, but Spoink, of course, saw Azurill, and because of the ball on its tail, it got interested in putting Azurill on its head, and did so with a psychic. Understandably, the boy instantly stopped running and started crying, wanting his Azurill back, and thankfully for him, Ash and Brock scolded Spoink again for taking something that wasn't its actual pearl, and gave Azurill back to the boy, who was grateful, after taking it away from Spoink. Spoink doesn't give up though, as it looks in the water, as well as the sky, and finds several other Pokemon nearby, and tries to put them on its head as well, such as 3 large Whalmers, a Swablu, and a Castform. But Ash and the gang just removed all these Pokemon as well, leaving Spoink disappointed at its pearlless head still. Still didn't have its goddamn pearl. Suddenly though, a man, dressed in a lab coat, so he was presumably a scientist, showed up, having spotted that Spoink didn't have its pearl, so he wanted to help, claiming that he knew a Pokemon known as Clampearl could assist Spoink in getting its pearl back, since Clampearl were related to pearls as well, stating that pearls that were grown inside of a Clampearl were the same kind of pearl that Spoink wear. Which, if you ask me, is kind of fucking weird, because these Pokemon aren't even related evolutionally, so that's a pretty interesting little relation there. Anyways, Ash and the gang wanted to learn more about Clampearl because they barely even knew what it was, so the scientist, who introduced himself as Isaiah, offered to take Ash and the gang back to his lab to show them some Clampearl, and they agreed, introducing themselves as well as they went to his lab. Although to Ash and the gang, the place looked more like a museum, because there was an actual, Clampearl habitat there. And to further prove that this lab was related to Clampearl, the fucking roof was designed like a shell of a Clampearl. Anyways, Ash and the gang were more interested in the Clamp Pearl habitat, which was basically a pool with large rock formations in the middle, with a group of Clamp Pearl on these rock formations. They commented on how cute they were and scanned them with their Pokédex. Isaiah then explained more about Clamp Pearl than the Dex could offer, which was that Clamp Pearl were abundant on this island, and Clamp Pearl made the pearls, which Spoink had on the top of their heads. They didn't just use the same pearls, they fucking made them. However, Isaiah clarified that none of the Clamp Pearl had a pearl yet, since it took them a while for them to make their own pearls. Spoink wasn't very intrigued by the Clamp Pearl. Instead, it saw something else, a blue pearl in a display case, and happily bounced over to it, wanting to examine it. Eventually, Splunk got so excited by the Blue Pearl that it managed to get Ash and the gang and Isaiah's attention as they all went over to the Blue Pearl, and Ash and the gang were almost as amazed by it as Splunk was, finding it beautiful, while Isaiah commented that the Blue Pearl was a rare find. And he also had no fucking clue how it even turned blue in the first place, as all pearls were supposed to be pink, but Isaiah stated that because he was a scientist, he had faith that he would eventually figure out what he needed to. Splunk, although it was excited by the Blue Pearl, started to stare at it sadly, missing its own pearl as well. Anyways, Ash and the gang were now motivated, as they knew that the Splunk pearls were created by Clamp Pearl, so now they just had to go and find one, and they started their search by going on the beach with Splunk, as Splunk bounced along, happily trying to look for its pearl. Eventually on the beach, Ash and the gang and Splunk came across a young girl and her Shroomish that were running along the beach playing, although Splunk, since Shroomish was kind of round, thought that it could be its new pearl, and used Psychic to put it on its head. Though May quickly grabbed Shroomish from Splunk's head and brought it back to the girl, apologizing, and the girl thankfully accepted May's apology, as Ash and Brock stayed behind to scold Splunk for trying to steal something that wasn't its own yet again. May then returned to Ash and Brock, since even though the girl had accepted her apology, she was terrified of Splunk doing something again, so she ran off with her Shroomish. However, when May returned to Ash and Brock, she was met with some bad news. Splunk had run away, and Ash and Brock had been unable to catch up to it, since it was bouncing too fast. And they lost track of it, so now they were going to have to try and find it. Meanwhile, Team Rocket had somehow followed Ash and the gang onto the island, and while they were searching the island, they had managed to come across Isaiah's lab somehow, and spotted the Blue Pearl, instantly plotting to steal it, knowing that it was extremely rare. Meowth particularly wanted to steal the Blue Pearl, as he had the exact same boss fantasy with Giovanni that he had in the episode with Splunk before, that involved Giovanni using the Blue Pearl as a ring for his finger, although he then remembered that that would have been too much for his finger, so he imagined Giovanni wearing it as a crown instead. Although James criticized Meowth for coming up with the same plan from the previous Spoink episode, or rather the previous time they encountered Spoink, although Meowth claimed that there was no reason to come up with a different plan when this plan was good. So good that Meowth believed that they would finally get promoted if they were successful. Even though James was annoyed by having the same plan over and over, and doubted that they would actually get promoted, especially for recycling an old plan, even though Giovanni didn't know about the first one. He still wanted the pearl anyways, obviously, because it was rare. And also, Jessie was basically forcing James to steal it, because she wanted it so much. So he managed to remove the display case stealthily, asking Jessie to be the one to actually take the pearl, and just as she was about to actually happily take it, it was revealed that the reason why Spoink had left Ash in the game was because if it couldn't have Shroomish or Azurill as its pearl, or its own pearl for that matter, it was going to take the blue pearl that it loved so much and use it as its own pearl, as it hopped by Team Rocket, going up to the pearl, and used Psychic to place it on its head, and then hopped all the way out of the window, as Team Rocket just stared in disbelief, shocked by the fact that Spoink was able to move around so well, solely by bouncing. Meanwhile, back on the beach with Ash and the gang, they were calling out for Spoink, trying their best to find it on the beach, when suddenly they heard an alarm coming from the museum, and realized that this was likely a burglar alarm, and ran over to check out the situation and make sure nothing got stolen. Team Rocket, still inside the lab, heard Ash and the gang approaching, and they didn't want to be blamed for stealing the pearl when they hadn't actually stolen the pearl yet, so they disguised themselves as janitors, with Meowth hiding in their cleaning bucket that they had mops in to hide him. Before Ash and the gang arrived at the case that was supposed to contain the blue pearl, going away from where he was studying in his office, because he immediately feared that it was the blue pearl that was being stolen when the burglar alarm went off. Right as Isaiah saw Team Rocket disguised as janitors, Ash and the gang showed up. Meowth almost popped out of the janitor bucket, so James had to quickly shove Meowth in, and somehow, presumably because Isaiah was so distraught about losing the blue pearl, as he, depressed and sad, looked at the empty case, he didn't recognize the fact that Team Rocket were janitors, even though he never hired any janitors, and Team Rocket proceeded to just tell the honest story about how Spoink had made off with the blue pearl, although they embellished a little bit, saying they'd just been minding their own business, when suddenly Spoink hopped by and used its Psychic to take the pearl, then hopped right out the window before they could do anything. Yeah, Spoink did take the pearl, but Team Rocket were far from doing their own thing. Anyways, Ash and the gang and Isaiah fell for Team Rocket's story, and Isaiah just continued to depressingly look at the empty case, saying how he really wished he got the chance to actually start research on the Blue Pearl to learn more about it. Ash and the gang then declared to Isaiah, trying to cheer him up though, that they would do everything in their power to help Isaiah find Spoink and the Blue Pearl, and with that, they went outside to search for Spoink and the Pearl, leaving Team Rocket glad that their identities weren't revealed, and they simply just shouted to Ash and the gang and Isaiah that they would get back to work, even though they had no intention of doing so. Anyways, outside the lab, Ash and May decided to send out their Swellow and Beautyfly to do an aerial search for Spoink and the Pearl, and Ash and the gang and Isaiah split up on the ground to go search. Meanwhile, Team Rocket had made their way out of the lab and were now spying on Ash and the gang and Isaiah from some bushes out of their janitor disguises, as they talked about how angry they were that Spoink made off with the pearl that they wanted to steal, and they declared that they were going to steal Spoink and the blue pearl and give them both to Giovanni, with Meowth having a boss fantasy, as he suggested that Giovanni could wear Spoink as a crown, while Spoink wore the blue pearl on its head. So basically, Giovanni could wear 2 crowns at once. Meowth then continued to fantasize about Giovanni wearing an entire king outfit and shit like that, although James commented that he didn't think Giovanni would ever wear anything like that and would stick to a more professional suit, but Meowth rebutted the opposite, and Jessie stated that regardless of what they were going to do with Spoink and the Pearl, they should definitely steal them regardless. Meanwhile, Spoink was happily bouncing along the beach with its new pearl, very happy to have it, when it suddenly encountered the girl with the Shroomish familiar and the boy with the Azuro familiar, implying that they were friends, and the 2 children immediately got scared upon seeing Spoink and held their Pokemon a great distance away from Spoink, fearing that it would try and take them again, and they even tried to hide their Pokemon behind their backs. The 2 kids then calmed down, though, when they noticed that Spoink had a pearl on its head now, so it likely wasn't going to take their Pokemon. Just then, though, as Spoink continued to bounce along, trying to ignore the 2 kids, since it didn't really care about Azuro or Shroomish anymore, it accidentally tripped again, and this caused the blue pearl to fly off from its head and bounce off from nearby rock on the beach to another nearby rock on the beach. After the blue pearl ricocheted on all the rocks, it eventually managed to land inside of a sleeping clam pearl that was open, and this clam pearl had just happened to form a pink pearl, and the blue pearl happened to knock the pink pearl out of clam pearl and land in clam pearl. So basically this clam pearl had a blue pearl now, and the pink pearl was sent flying, ricocheting on the rocks because of this, and eventually it landed right in front of Spoink. The pink pearl had some momentum left in it, though, as it continued to bounce all the way into Spoink's head, making Spoink extremely happy, as it forgot all about the blue pearl, happy to have its original pearl back. Or at least, its original color pearl. The children were shocked that Spoink didn't even care about the blue pearl being knocked away from it, since it looked so happy with it, and they also wondered how the Spoink had the blue pearl in the first place, realizing that Spoink were only supposed to have pink pearls, as they had seen other Spoink before. Though obviously, the kids didn't know about the situation with the blue pearl, and how Spoink had acquired it. Just then, as Spoink was happily bouncing away from the kids along the beach, Beautyfly had happened to spot Spoink and immediately flew back to Ash and the gang, reporting this, and it eventually led them to Spoink's location. And by the way, Ash and the gang and Isaiah had reunited at this point, so it was easy for Beautyfly to find them all, and Swellow joined them as well. Anyways, everyone managed to find Spoink, and was shocked to see that Spoink had regained its pink pearl, thinking it was its original one. It turns out that the 2 kids had been following Spoink, intrigued by it, and when they saw that Ash and the gang and Isaiah were confused, they explained to them what had happened, as they pointed over to the scene where the clam pearl had been replaced by the blue pearl and shit. Like, the blue pearl went over into the clam pearl, and the pink pearl went on Spoink's head. Ash and the gang thanked the kids, very pleased with their information, because now, not only could they get Spoink back, which they already had, they could hopefully get the blue pearl back from the clam pearl as well. Unbeknownst to Ash and the gang and Isaiah, Team Rocket had been spying on them from a tree and had overheard everything they said, and we're going to take the opportunity to go over to the clam pearl as well and steal it to get the pink pearl inside, to get the blue pearl inside. Anyways, Ash and the gang, Isaiah and Spoink had made their way over to the clam pearl, but they saw that its shell was now closed, as if the clam pearl was sleeping still, or hiding, or like in a really deep sleep or some shit. So they knew they had to find a way to open it. Spoink approached, trying to talk to clam pearl to get it to open its shell, and eventually the clam pearl's shell did open. And much to Ash and the gang and Isaiah's delight, when they approached Clam Pearl as well, they saw that there was in fact the missing blue pearl inside of it. Clam Pearl had also woken up as well, so May tried to negotiate with the Clam Pearl, asking if they could have the blue pearl back, but Clam Pearl refused. So this led Spoink to take the pink pearl off of its head and offer Clam Pearl a trade for the blue pearl, to which Clam Pearl agreed, and May thanked it. Meaning that, I guess Spoink actually did care about the blue pearl after all. Maybe initially he was just so happy to have his initial coloring back that, he forgot about the blue pearl, but I guess he realized that the blue pearl was cooler. Just as May was about to take the blue pearl from Clam Pearl, though, and Spoink was about to place the pink pearl in Clam Pearl, a smoke bomb then went off, dropped by Team Rocket from the tree, and smoke filled the area. And Team Rocket jumped down, revealing themselves as the smoke dissipated, and also revealing that their Meowth balloon had also been on the island this entire time, and I guess it was at the edge of the beach. Anyways, Team Rocket did their motto, with Chimecho joining in, as per usual now. And Team Rocket declared their plan to steal the blue pearl from Clam Pearl, as Jessie sent out her Seviper to do so, leading Ash to send out his Torkoal to battle it. Seviper very quickly went in for the first attack, being a bite, and unfortunately, Ash knew that Seviper was too quick for him to be able to launch a counter-attack from Torkoal, so instead, he had Torkoal use Iron Defense to withdraw and hide inside of its shell, and because of this, Seviper ended up biting into Torkoal's shell, not even doing any damage to it, and only injuring itself, both on its head and its teeth. With Seviper injured, Ash had Torkoal come out of its shell and use a flamethrower, but Seviper dodged, which made Jessie excited that the battle was finally going her way for once, as she quickly ordered Seviper to take control of the battle by using a haze. This obviously affected everyone's vision, as they couldn't see jack shit, and Ash and the gang just desperately ran around, trying to protect Clam Pearl and make sure Team Rocket wouldn't steal it, but Ash and the gang were all disorganized and not able to even reunite, while Team Rocket were able to reunite, with James having already captured Clam Pearl inside of a bag. So, now that James had Clam Pearl, Team Rocket escaped in their Meowth balloon and flew off. When the smoke cleared, Ash and the gang realized that thankfully, Team Rocket had no interest in Spoink and its pearl, but Clam Pearl and therefore the blue pearl were gone, and Ash declared that they had to go after Team Rocket, and the gang did so, along with Isaiah. Meanwhile, by the time Ash and the gang had realized that Team Rocket had gotten away with Clamp Pearl, Team Rocket were already a long distance away in a forest on the island, and they soon got out of their Meowth balloon, landing it, and they got Clamp Pearl out as well, and they were trying to forcibly open Clamp Pearl's shell up, begging it to give them the blue pearl inside. They eventually got tired of forcing Clamp Pearl's shell to open up, so they just tried to convince Clamp Pearl to open up its shell, but it wasn't listening, even when Jessie sweetly asked Clamp Pearl to open up as nice as she could. Clamp Pearl did actually open up a little bit, Jessie realized, indicating that her sweet talk was actually working a bit, so she tried to sweet talk some more, but when she actually tried to grab the blue pearl from Clamp Pearl, once its shell was open enough, Clamp Pearl shut its shell once again, making Jessie extremely angry, as she could physically see the blue pearl back when the shell was open. She was so close to taking it, but she'd failed. James got frustrated as well, and tried once again to physically pry open the shell, using as much strength as he possibly could, but he just ended up almost crying, almost pulling a muscle, and he still couldn't get the shell to open. Meowth, seeing how Jessie and James were frustrated, then offered another suggestion, claiming that it was so secret and genius that he had to whisper it to Jessie and James. Jessie and James were intrigued, so they listened to Meowth, and he suggested simply that they just talk to Clamp Pearl again and try to sweet talk it. Jessie and James were extremely mad at this idea, because they already tried it, but they reluctantly tried again, because Meowth wouldn't fucking stop suggesting it, and just as Team Rocket expected, they failed. Even after immensely complimenting Clamp Pearl a lot, Meowth then started to get worried, realizing that Giovanni could actually be annoyed by having Clamp Pearl as a Pokemon if Clamp Pearl wouldn't even open up for him, and this made Meowth stressed that maybe Jessie and James and Meowth would actually end up getting a downgrade as opposed to an upgrade in Team Rocket, because Giovanni would be so angry at them. And Meowth proceeded to have a boss fantasy about giving the closed Clamp Pearl to Giovanni, with Giovanni struggling to get it open and then stubbing his toe on it. An immensely worried Meowth started to pace, trying to come up with an idea to open up Clamp Pearl, and he eventually managed to come up with a bright idea, which was to try to tickle Clamp Pearl and force it to open that way. Much to Team Rocket's amusement, after they tickled Clamp Pearl, it opened up its shell a little bit, though it wasn't open enough quite yet, so Meowth decided to tickle it some more by using his tail. And Meowth laughed as he did this, taunting the Clamp Pearl to just open the fuck up, and this, along with the tickling, happened to make Clamp Pearl a bit angry, as Meowth instantly regretted taunting Clamp Pearl with his tail, as Clamp Pearl then shut its shell completely, clamping down on Meowth's tail, causing Meowth to scream in pain, and also leading Meowth to beg Clamp Pearl to open up. James was oblivious to Meowth's screaming, even though Jessie was annoyed by it, as he was too busy checking out some cards that he got from Team Rocket that had Pokemon info on them, including some info on Clamp Pearl. All James was able to find in terms of information, though, was confirmation that when Clamp Pearl clamped down on Meowth's tail, it was using its move, Clamp. Just then, after Clamp Pearl had gotten annoyed by Meowth shouting, Clamp Pearl opened up its shell, although this caused Meowth to go flying into a tree as he was running around in pain while his tail was caught in the shell. So when the shell opened, Meowth had so much momentum that he went straight into the tree. While Meowth was recovering from being bashed into the tree, Jessie got excited as she realized that Clamp Pearl was now open again. So she tried to grab the blue pearl, but much to her dismay, Clamp Pearl shut once again before she could. Jessie was extremely frustrated, but James, on the other hand, came up with a new idea to get Clamp Pearl to open, as he sent out none other than his Chimecho, and suggested that Chimecho could probably get Clamp Pearl in a more willing mood to open up, because of Chimecho's sweet voice and chiming. So James ordered Chimecho to sing in its sweet voice to Clamp Pearl, but even Chimecho's singing didn't make Clamp Pearl open its shell, which made Jessie immensely angry, which in turn scared Chimecho, who wrapped around James with its tail, trying to cower away from Jessie, although James was annoyed by this, so he called back Chimecho. Jessie declared that James' ideas were useless, and simply tried to talk to Clamp Pearl in her sweet talk again, but in response, Clamp Pearl not only remained closed, but opened up a tiny bit, which at first excited Jessie, but this was only because it wanted to use Water Gun on her, and once it did, it closed once again, and the Water Gun ended up pushing Jessie into the same tree Meowth crashed into, even though Meowth had since recovered from being knocked into the tree, and was back with Jessie and James. Meowth was amazed to see that someone else was victim to Clamp Pearl's power instead of himself, and complimented Clamp Pearl on how strong of an attack its Water Gun was, which made Jessie so mad that she was able to instantly recover from knocking into the tree, and she got up and yelled at both James and Meowth. And she declared that she was going to go back to what James initially tried to do, which was just open the shell with force, but she was having no luck, and only got angrier. Swellow, who had been sent to go after Team Rocket, managed to hear Jessie screaming, and therefore found Team Rocket's location, and went back to Ash and the gang to report back to them. And sure enough, Swellow was quickly able to locate Ash and the gang, and not May's Beautyfly, since she had recalled it, and therefore Ash and the gang and Isaiah went straight for Team Rocket, and Swellow led them there. And when they arrived, they immediately saw that Team Rocket was trying to pry open the Clamp Pearl shell, now with some wooden sticks they'd found on the ground, but this wasn't working either. And they were immediately stopped from doing this futile effort when Ash and the gang showed up, and Spoink used Psychic on Team Rocket to protect Clamp Pearl and lift them away from it, and particularly throw them straight into the basket of their Meowth balloon. As Ash and the gang made fun of Team Rocket for trying to open up Clamp Pearl with some goddamn sticks. Ash and the gang thought that Team Rocket was relatively dealt with, so they took the opportunity to check on Clamp Pearl to make sure it was alright, even though its shell was barely open. But Team Rocket were not down, as Jessie sent out Dustox, and James sent out Cacnea, who hugged him, prickling him. Ash, however, then sent out his Grovyle to battle Dustox and Cacnea, and the battle began, with Dustox going to use Tackle, but Grovyle countered with a Quick Attack, stopping Dustox's Tackle and dealing damage to it. James then set his sights on weakening Clamp Pearl, still trying to get Clamp Pearl to open up, as he had Cacnea use Pin Missile on it, but Spoink, likely wanting to protect Clamp Pearl since it had the blue pearl inside, jumped in front and used Psychic to stop the Pin Missiles and send them back towards Cacnea. Although Cacnea didn't take much damage from this, since, it was basically made out of cactus and prickles. Grovyle and Spoink then fully team up on Team Rocket, as Grovyle uses Bullet Seed to damage Dustox, and Spoink uses Psybeam to damage Cacnea. May and Max were pleased by Grovyle and Spoink, as they congratulated them on the great attacks, and Clamperl was enjoying the display as well, slowly opening up to get a better view of Grovyle and Spoink, defending it by taking out Team Rocket, and coming to the conclusion that maybe Ash and the gang were pretty cool after all, along with Spoink. Anyways, the battle was continuing, as Dustox aimed a Poison Sting at Grovyle, but Grovyle dodged this by doing a series of backflips, and then used a Leaf Blade of its own, scoring a super strong hit on Dustox. Cacnea then went to use Needle Arm on Clamperl, still targeting Clamperl, but Spoink wouldn't let Cacnea do this, as he stopped Cacnea when Cacnea rushed towards Clamperl by using a Psybeam to push Cacnea back. Clamperl was very inspired by Spoink's performance and decided to take action itself, as it opened its shell a little bit to unleash a water gun right at Team Rocket, Dustox, and Cacnea, sending them all blasting off as Wobbuffet forcibly popped out of its Pokeball. With Team Rocket gone, everyone cheered, but then Ash remembered that they had to get the Blue Pearl back from Clamperl, like they were originally going to do, and suggested that Clamperl and Spoink make the trade that they were going to do before, since Isaiah needed the Blue Pearl to study. Spoink went up to Clamperl and gave its pink pearl that it had gotten from Clamperl back to Clamperl, while Clamperl opened its shell and gave the blue pearl to Spoink, with Spoink using Psychic to help with the exchange. Basically, it used Psychic to move the pink pearl off of its head and into Clamperl, and it used Psychic to move the blue pearl into Isaiah's hands, leaving Ash and the gang, Isaiah, and Spoink to thank Clamperl for everything, although Spoink was depressed as fuck, since it didn't have either a pink pearl or a blue pearl, since, Isaiah had to study the blue pearl. Clamperl saw that Spoink was depressed, even when Ash and the gang and Isaiah assured Spoink that they would continue searching for its real pearl that was still lost in the sea, if you remember that, though Spoink had his doubts that they would actually be able to find it, and Clamperl, seeing that Spoink was still depressed, decided to express his gratitude to Spoink for helping save him from Team Rocket by giving Spoink his own pink pearl that he had created. Spoink was absolutely overjoyed and proceeded to use Psychic to take the pink pearl from Clamperl and place it on its head. And the episode ends with Spoink bouncing happier than ever, and Ash and the gang and Isaiah happy as well that Spoink had a proper pearl once again. Now, hopefully, it would never lose it again, and I don't think it will, because I don't think we're ever going to see this Spoink again. It's actually a miracle that we saw it again. I mean, it's technically a character of the day. We never see character of the days for the second time, aside from, like, 3 previous times, but anyways, that's yet another episode in the books.